Okay, salutations to all the Untier heads out there. It is us back for whatever this becomes now that PUPL is over. Um, much less of a crowded week. Not the same kind of recaps, but we do have a guest here today, Vakir, to talk about the Smug on Snake draft, which I will
Hello,
never
hello.
get tired of saying. We're all also kind of exhausted out of our minds, so we'll see how this goes. Just
Often.
yeah, it's what 5 a.m. for you, Hajed, and you haven't slept.
Yep.
It's just yeah, that's your peek
Yep.
behind the curtain as to how this works. Okay, um, small newsy bits, I guess. The ADVPU tournament signups are up for that. You can still go join, and this open top four, which I really have nothing to say. Like it's been rehashed in Discord so many times, people talking about maybe open will be exciting, and it just continues to not be because we kind of just have the people who've like been good enough to not get lucked and have opponents lose at them, but also like uninteresting enough to go like, oh, this is just not fun to watch. It's a very, it's a very depressing open. Uh, but that is, it is what it is, I suppose. Um, no,
Unfortunately, it's been bland enough that I don't really have much to add either.
I'll take Hijad's silence as acquiescence. Okay. Snake draft
Yeah, I mean,
happened.
it did happen.
Yeah. So that's week one will be up for another week. So we're not going to have replays to go over for a couple weeks from now, but we can still talk about the player rankings and what we think. We are recording this on the night of Wednesday slash morning of Thursday, which means that the power rankings are not out yet, which include votes from like a bunch of people playing actually in the tour and tend to look different from what we actually think. So if you like our opinions, I would also recommend checking that out when it comes out. I assume they'll look pretty different. I also posted my own personal rankings that had nothing to do with Untier Talk um, in the Snake Draft discussion thread. So there's a lot of different things we could talk about where the teams are going. Um, Before we try to just give like our own approximate, here's how good the teams are. Hey Jed, do you want to give any inside baseball that you might have being an actual manager and drafter in this draft?
Um, the only thing, well, with PU, it just felt sort of weird because we knew going into the auction um, that me and Evie would be able to provide more PU support than most managers typically would. So we didn't need, for example, somebody like Katut, who was easily, I think, the top PU pick of all of the players. Um, and then, like, we didn't need that. We didn't need somebody who could do it all, like someone like TJ or somebody like Katut who could do it all and be fine and have a decent record, right? Um, we were more so we could more so afford to bring a player in like a Soul Gazer or a False or a Kepi, who we ended up going for, um, who would require maybe a bit more like parental supervision, but could still put up a decent record. And we can also do that way later in the auction than going for a Qatar earlier.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a little bit of good background. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this draft went. A few people like there's a couple snubs um, that I sort of personally pushed back on. I think most of them are pretty reasonable, and PU is still much less so than last year, but still a bit of a junior tier that people put a bit less importance into. And aside from
I actually think I actually think that the PU player base, like, because as a manager, I had an insight into basically all of the player bases, and I felt like PU was one of the more stacked player bases, where you could sort of afford to wait later into the auction and say, yeah, I'd be happy with a Termi or an LST or somebody who didn't even get drafted, but you'd be happy with them to play PU for your team. So Like
I
I
think in
think
general you would, but I don't know how many managers knew that, to be honest.
yeah,
Because
probably.
PU went kind of late, but not crazy late for the most part. I was just gonna say, I think Termy was definitely like the biggest notable. Like, probably should have showed up, but for the most part, I think this is pretty cool. And also, like I said, some people I didn't really expect to get picked up. Skip Can managed to put himself out there to get drafted by the Leviathans. That's the tricking and mysterious M team. And Specs getting picked up by Cobras as Ziri support. Um, as well as Kepi, although Kepi's coming off like good PPL results and getting drafted by like the PU mainer manager, so that's less surprising. But I think we had some like extra pickups to make up for it. Um, and yeah, this is a very strong lineup. I had a lot of trouble ranking people, and I knew particularly my placement of Katut was going to be like on the controversial side, as well as Telenet. Um,
I feel like Katut in particular, he's a quite a polarizing character. Just in PU in general. Like I think he's a very good player. Um, he's one of them person that you don't need to micromanage. Like he'll he'll sort out his entire PUPL thing for you. But yeah, as I said earlier, one of mine and Evie's main like drafts as managers is being able to be like daddy whoever the PU slot is.
hmm.
So we can we didn't need somebody like that.
Okay, so first of all, real quick, Akir Hajad, if you had to do like your own off the top of your head, real quick, snake rankings, would they be anywhere close to mine? Is there like any reason to go off the back of mine, or should we just jump from team to team?
Hold on, let me just laugh at your power rankings real quickly. I
Yeah,
need to find them.
here I can link them for you and Akir right there.
All right,
If you
sounds
think
good.
yours would be reasonably close, then we can use mine as a basis, and if not, we can just go down the teams in order.
Uh,
I've never really put
yours.
stock into being like, yeah, this person's the number one player right now. But what I do think is that TJ, K-Tut, and Kepi are running hot right now. Just coming off of PUPL, will probably bring it in here. Ziri and Talina are both really good, but not having them on the same team's a bit of a blow. But I put them below that. It's kind of going on like that.
Okay. Hey, Jed, terrible
I
rankings?
think
You
yours is
liked my post.
pretty.
How do you.
Yeah, yours is pretty close to what I would do.
Okay.
To be honest, yeah. I think there's a few things that I'd swap about it. Like I think Obi would go last place for me. Um, Skip Can would then go ninth, and then Rosie would go eighth, just because I've had more like interaction, I guess, with Rosie Bear, so I know
Okay.
how much effort they're
Yeah.
putting in.
So,
But
so let's
yeah,
talk about
that would be personal for me.
the quote unquote bottom three slots, I guess, that like I think people have more or less settled on, depending on how much stock you put in Skip Can. You've got Rosie Bear and Obi as the two non PU players coming into this. Rosie Bear is currently sitting in PU Open Finals, um, but like we've talked about, it's so impossible to give stock to that because you actually like look at who Rosie Bear played and watch their games. It's like, oh, they just this is an open where all the really good people got lucked, and Rosie Bear just kind of was given a run. And it's impressive that they haven't like fucked up and thrown shit. Like that's many rounds of a single elimination tournament. You have to not fuck up. Um, but they also haven't put much out there. I put Rosie Bear last because I don't know them. I don't know how much they're putting in. Um, Presumably more than Open because Open is also going at the same time as other Slam tiers. So you kind of have to divert your attention. Whereas if they're like just focusing on PU and Snake, they can get more out of it. I know they're a fellow
Mhm.
Brit, so you have more. So you're just gonna automatically have more faith there. Um, but I don't
No,
know.
I'd say being a Brit just gives me more exposure to them. Like for example, I was on Rosie Bear's. Well, I was the manager of the World Cup team, which Rosie Bear was on. So I've had a more like I know how much effort they're putting into like Grand Slam and like PU Open. Generally, being like I guess an elder statesman of PU, they come to me for advice, being like one of the only sources that they have available to them. So yeah, like I have more of an interaction with them, which is the only reason I'd rank them higher than 10th. I don't expect other people to rank them higher than 10th though.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just hard to see much from this. This was also a little sad because apparently they're starting, even though the Rattlers picked up Bugzinator, who's coming off an extremely hot PUPL, and definitely would have seemed like the more natural person to put in PU. And I know he said like, oh, he would have been down to play PU if that had been like what the Rattlers were planning on. So if that
Mhm.
changes, in fact, one of the starters in my power rankings is actually wrong apparently, and the team is starting someone who like no isn't is expecting, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say,
How do you know?
because I happened to talk to them, and they're like, yeah, I'm not
Oh,
gonna start it, and it's someone who like you really are not expecting to start, but like I don't think I'm supposed to say that yet. The
Well,
Finch
don't say it.
PRs
I won't
aren't
be
out or anything,
surprised.
so I'm not going to say it. But one of our rankings is going to be very outdated for someone I think is definitely going to get ranked worse and would probably be ranked under Rosie Bear by pretty much anyone. Just
really? That's interesting.
just because like it's someone relatively random to PU and doesn't even have the like. At least they made open finals.
Okay.
Obi.
Well, that's interesting.
Obi's like an older tour player, mostly OU guy. I actually put him at eighth and even above Skipcan because like he's
Yeah, I
had good runs in tours in the past. Like people know Obi doesn't suck. He's never been like top, or I think he was like kind of top for a little bit in OU, but I don't think he's ever like really popped off in low tiers. I just have a bit more faith because you've got the jerk team that's like fully committed in multiple tiers to not really getting a main at all, and just like you know having a good team culture where people are like gonna just test stuff out and like try to tour play over the low tiers. I just think that'll be a little bit more
mm,
successful when that's something that you're going for and planning for. I don't think he's gonna like keep wiping the floor with mains. Um, but I think that environment is just a little bit stronger than someone like Rosie trying to figure out PU with like just Bugsy support and maybe a bit of advice from Brits. I don't know. Um,
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with you there, just because I don't have that much faith in a jerk team to be able to prepare in a tier that they don't know, right? And in in my experience, it's very easy on a team like that to go 0-2 or 0-3 and just straight out like find another player, put them in, and especially if you don't win the first week or you don't get into a immediate like momentum, it becomes very difficult to then find the motivation to really pick up and learn a tier. And I feel like PU is in a state where you need to have some element of experience to be able to function at like the top level. I'm not talking about maybe like ladder level.
mm,
Like you could probably cheese a few ladder wins, but and a
eh,
ladder ranking. But I don't think it's it's that feasible for somebody to just come in with no PU experience, turn up for Snake, and then expect to do decent. Like I don't put that much stock in it.
I don't know. Yeah, Akir, how hard do you really think PU is to pick up? Because I honestly do not think it's especially hard right now for a low tier.
At the moment, no, it's not particularly hard. But then again, maybe next week it'll be a completely different story.
Yeah, tier shift is
It's
coming.
something you need to keep up to. It's something that you need to keep up to date with, and that's the thing. Like you can be up to date 2 weeks ago, but that doesn't mean that you'll win 2 weeks time. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I mean, I think the tier shift is a bit of an equalizer there, and I don't think there's a lot of stuff in PU that's so crazy that like I just really don't think it's that complicated for a low tier to pick up, especially like watching some of the other low tiers. There's definitely some fun jank sets. Maybe Obi's just gonna run into like the weakness policy flame charge Gorgeist to be like, oh god, what the fuck. Um, but I don't know that it's really the hardest low tier, and especially if you give him this gap week to prep. That's sort of where I differ. But I don't think this is something you can conclusively nail down as much as just like I value this a little bit more.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
comes down to like minor tweaks and what you value as a player.
Mhm. In terms of actually like more expected main or starters, the lowest person we had is Skip Can, who I think was definitely a little bit of a surprise. I know Skipcan has put up a lot of circuit results, but they had like a random 3-2 in PUPL that was only in Sun and Moon. And God, one of those wins was that awful Tricks game in finals. Um, they haven't touched SS as much. I didn't know how much they're really getting back into it. And being on the Clay Dolls with their very top SS certainly helps. I'm sure he doesn't know nothing. Um, but he sort of has the least out of anyone here in terms of recent SS results or like any tour results at all. That's like someone kind of has to be last, and there's nothing really pushing Skipcan above any of the other players here.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, I like to think about these players as who would I least like to play, and put them in that sort of order generally. And I feel like Skipcan is a good player, but he's not somebody that I particularly fear playing. Like if you look towards the back end, like Gatat, SG, Zeri, these are players that you don't want to play. Like you don't want to see yourself in PU Open next to SG's name.
Yeah,
for example, like,
everyone has to have their tour debut, their first tour. So it's gonna happen, but like in that first tour, you're not gonna be the big intimidating name, probably.
Exactly, yeah. There's so much experience backing those three, for example, in comparison to Skipcan. Like, it's very difficult to put him up on that level.
Yeah. Akira, I think you hosted. Do you remember? I think he made open or not like circuit top 8. I think was where he peaked last year. Does that ring a bell at all? I don't.
Oh, that was a generation ago, man. I have to look it up.
Wait. Skipcan lost to me in circuit playoffs at least.
Yeah, I think he made top 8 and he had like some good seasonal runs. He made top 4. Yeah, Rexus, Lockjaw, Skipcan, Najad. Okay, yeah, he made top 4, and came second in ladder tour. That was like his big thing in circuit. I pulled up I found the 2019 PU circuit standings really fast. So that was like his big thing, which is, he's been kind of consistent in those circuit stuff, but this is sort of another step up. I also didn't talk about the support on his team or Obi's team. If Obi kind of busters out, I think you could expect to see possibly Vivalos Pride, possibly TKO, maybe Star, but I really don't think you take Star as your round 1 OU player and stick him in PU. Maybe Malekith, I guess. He actually had kind of an open run, but again, I think he's more of the OU guy. And on Skipcan's team, I think another factor is Skipcan's definitely a guy who's going to have friends to be able to test with and play with, but specifically like on his team, he doesn't really have other builders or like more meta knowledgeable people as much as just people he could pass teams to. If he doesn't do well, I could see him supplying teams for Kushalos or Ham. But no other like PU knowledgeable people really there. Okay, I think we get to the middle of the pack now. So that was like the lower 3. Middle is definitely subjective though. Like I definitely have a pretty different middle. I put Tlenet, Kepi, and False, which other people like Somalia stuck stuck Tlenet at 4th. And False at like not at like 7th. So you can definitely have drastically different opinions here. Obviously, you have a lot more faith in Kepi being his manager, so that's probably not where you'd place him on like your own personal rankings. And Akira doesn't even want to rank people, so I'm just gonna call this the middle because that's like the easiest for me to mentally sort out. Tlenet, second time in Snake, but first time it looks like he'll actually be playing a game. and I stuck him at 7th. Like I said, mostly just because Drakloak's SS was not good in PUPL, and that's the big recent thing. Um, Drakloak's SS was overall 9-12. Um, Slenet went 2-2. Confide had an okay run that was just kind of a bit of luck overall. And then their third slot was 1-5 between Bayoba and 49 and Ziri. That's that doesn't show a ton of like super on top of the meta. It's not completely dire, and everyone knows like, oh yeah, Talent's good. Um, but as far as concrete things we can actually go off of, we just kind of have that record and support of being like just Expulso, who's probably going to be more focused on RU this tour.
For me, if I was to put this sort of this player pool in like a ranking, it would go like Rosie, Skipcan, Obi, and then there would be a big break, and then there'd be Telenet.
Yeah.
And then Telenet sort of operates in this weird area where he's similar to Skipcan in ways and not similar in others. Like Telenet has had a lot of praise for his support, and rightly so. Like he's a very good player to support, but he hasn't had that experience. He probably has a similar amount of experience to Skipcan, honestly, in like a big tour setting where he's the guy, who has to get the win. And speaking on both sides, where I've been both the tour player and also the support, it's very easy to operate in a support role and keep quiet in a way where it's like you don't necessarily need to bring so much attention to yourself. You just need to give your player the odds of winning. And it's very different when you're trying to support yourself, because you want to give yourself like, I want to win 100%, So I honestly put Slenet on this like little island in 7th and just leave him there, honestly, because he could end up with a very similar record to Skipcan. I do have faith in him though, more than Skipcan, because I do think that he will at least try to give himself the best odds possible. So yeah, I put him in the island in 7th.
Okay, well, I guess that just about that's pretty comprehensive. I stuck Kepi at 6th, and I definitely went back and forth on like on putting Kepi and False at the mid ground 5th and 6th slots. Yeah, I really did not know here, and it kind of came down to me going back and looking at PUPL. I'm like, how good was Kepi's run exactly? I don't know. Akir, do you want to tie break on which one you'd place slightly higher? Hijad's compromised here, so.
Right, I would place Kepi higher because sometimes False will decide that they're done, and Kepi will always try.
Okay, so let's hit False first then. Yeah. So False is.
I personally would rank Kepi at number 1, just for disclaimer.
That's why I didn't ask you. So False is on the Nagas, which is another like very tour player focused team, and they definitely picked up False to just be like, PU slot don't care. But the reason like I put False higher is basically. We have a good open run for him that ended by him getting hacked pretty bad by Soulwind, but open was stupid overall. The main reason I just put False like high is because when he's taken PU seriously, last Snake, he had a second best record at 6-3. Although I don't like, is that tied for second best record? If Soulgazer had a 5-2, and False is like ranked higher because that's one more win, like in more games, but. Is that technically better, 6-3 versus 5-2?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I'd say it's better.
Okay, no, so...
I'd say it's worse because it's like overall less percentage.
But you have to think about also who's replacing that person for those 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And why they're replacing Soulgazer, for example, in PU. You know what I mean? You can probably make an argument either way, I think.
Yeah, Soulgazer like just did not. Soulgazer did not play week 9, and he didn't get a semis game, which I think False. Yeah, False did get a semis game, which looks like a win versus Teddy. So that there's that. Um, yeah, False had a top 2 record last Snake. Um, that was coming off SM where he had been a bit more active. But again, he's come back. He's made the open run, and I just couldn't hold like not doing anything in PUPL against him when he was on a team that he was on the team that he did not they got traded to and did not want to play for and didn't really do much of anything. Whereas I actually expect him to uh, try. And I just kind of I rate False. Like if you put up the 6-3 record, that's to me a much bigger boon than almost anything else.
Who does False have to talk to about PU and that team?
Well,
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that I'd be concerned about. To be honest.
Atomic Llamas and Kink. So there's not much there.
Okay.
Whereas last year
that's not nothing.
That's not nothing. But last year with the 6-3 record, he did have you and Evagero. So that's drastically different. Whereas like you'll see I rate Ziri pretty high, who actually does have good support again. False does not have what he had last year. The person who has that is Kepi on the Straitas, backed by you and Evagero. Coming off a very hot PUPL, completely new to a big tour like this. But I think seen as a hot commodity by like the PU community just because of what they did on the Carcoals. Having like an early bad couple of weeks in SM, and then jumping into SS, finishing with a 6-2 record overall, and winning weeks 3 through finals as well. So like their only losses were in the first 2 weeks. That's like a really big streak. The thing that made me tiebreak Kepi versus False, like having that great record in a big Snake setting for False, but also not having that support versus Kepi being really hot, but also really new to this, is that once Kepi actually got into SS, they had a pretty easy run. They had wins on, let's see, Gum, 2 on Procopius, 1 on Sigeniter. The win that I just completely threw immediately. Like that game was a toss. Yeah. I think they're definitely good, but I think what we don't see here is like quite the stellar high level that's going to be pretty much week in, week out from Snake. I think only Rosie Bear is kind of the unknown quantity, and maybe Obi and Skip can sort of throw a game or two. But overall, I think if Kepi starts playing out Telenet into False, into Katut, into Soulgazer, that's just harder. That's just harder than beating Procopius twice.
I think they'll win all the games.
Okay, did you have something to say? It looked like your mic cut out for a sec.
Oh yeah, maybe it did a little bit. I guess what I said earlier kind of applies here, where I would trust Kepi to continue trying, even if they do take a loss or two.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be discouraged. I just think that's harder, and like on the small tie breaks that you have, I think that's just like this is a harder run. It's Snake.
Yeah, but like when comparing Kepi to False in particular, like False is a cool guy, I like him and all that, but if both of them were 0-3 or like 0-4, I trust Kepi to put more work into it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, Kepi isn't going down without a fight.
Yeah.
Also, especially when I'm your manager.
I suppose it's worth mentioning because we did mention it for other tiers. If something for whatever reason happened to Kepi, my assumption would be that Feliburn or Boof would come in to fill the slot with the other one taking over RU, or maybe like Excelgor would end up in RU and someone else jumps into UU. I don't really know. I don't expect that to happen. I think Kepi's probably going to play pretty much every week, or maybe take like 1 week off for Booth to play or something. But it should be mentioned since I've done it for everyone else. So I think that takes us to the top four. Obviously, give or take Hajad's complete faith in his own player, I think this is a pretty reasonable top four to have between TJ, Katut, Ziri, and Soulgazer. Which that's my order from fourth to first, but I think most people I've seen, and probably what the Snake Power rankings will end up being, will end up having some order of like Katut first, and then like Soulgazer, TJ, then Ziri. If I had to guess, just based on people's reactions, and I think that's totally fair. I think this was all really, really close. I suppose we can just go into it in the order that I ranked them, even though that might not be totally accurate. So I stuck TJ in fourth, which was a hard decision to do after he just won PUPL on the Clay Dolls, who had the best SS record. And for me, that was mostly like, if anyone's gonna drop off, TJ was on a team where he could be prepping with like Katut and Yandod and Procopius and Skipcan and Squash and PTF all the time. So like, I'm sure he can still play with some of his friends and stuff, but some of those people are on other Snake teams and are supporting other teams and have other priorities. And TJ himself had like a pretty solid PUPL run, tied for second with Bugsnader, but like Kepi with just like a relatively bit easier slew of opponents than what you'd actually than what you're actually going to end up facing in Snake. So when I had to tie break it somewhere on who might be the one to falter, who was like, I don't know, the shakiest person to still like be likely to put up a top record. That's sort of where I landed on putting TJ just a little bit lower than the rest.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Honestly, for me, it's tough because I agree with you. I think I'd put TJ in fourth. But I think it speaks not in talking down on TJ. I think it just speaks to the strength of the top three as like hard hitting. These are some of like these. I think easily these three could compete in the OU scene if they had really wanted to. But obviously for whatever reason, they decided that they wanted to play P.
I think Katut tried to an OLT, and I don't think that went. I think he qualified off like ladder stuff, and then immediately.
Yeah, but I think if Katut put his whole like weight behind it, he could have probably done something in OU. Mm. I think, despite that, I feel like TJ. The only reason that he comes fourth for me, despite what happened in PUPL, is that he's still new to the whole official tour thing. Like, he doesn't have much stuff outside of PUPL for people to really like, oh, TJ played for, I don't know, US East once and in the World Cup and went 2-1 or whatever, right? He doesn't really have much notoriety outside there. So this is a new setting-ish for him, and it might not go well for him, just by matter of chance. But I feel like he's a solid fourth. Like, in the rankings where I don't put Kepi in, TJ is like fourth, and then there's like a gap, and then there's the top three in like a very close order. But then there's like a gap back down to like Volson,
yeah,
Slenet.
Yeah. Like here, anything on the? I don't know. You're typically more of a host guy than the minutia of the of the rankings of the actual people you have to talk to, guy.
No, like I watch everything that I oversee, but the big thing about it is I do consider them to be at about the same level. Although the big thing to me is that out of the four, Ziri is the one with the best support.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
except for the Kepi again. I'm gonna keep memeing Kepi in first.
well, I mean, like, out of those four,
Yeah, yeah. No, I know.
yeah. But big thing is like, I think you're right, TJ, and I think K Type, from what I saw, don't really have literally sit down and bounce of in their team. So we'll see how it goes ultimately.
Yeah, I should reiterate that like I would expect pretty much everyone on here, maybe like one, maybe not for like one team, to have some people supporting them who are not drafted and still helping them out. That's just like it's going to happen. That's how you get help from friends. But I do still see it as like an inherently different situation to someone who's like drafted with the express purpose of helping you. I think
Yeah,
the support's just a little less, and obviously you
Oh
can't get
yeah,
all the friends when some of them are helping other people and stuff. So on his
right.
actual
TJ's
team, TJ doesn't really have that support. He has Pepe, who said he wanted to like get back into learning PU, but that's more like TJ would need to be like helping Pepe rather than help Pepe being like a big help to TJ. So
and I guess TJ will always have Erusius so on.
yeah, it'll like that. That's where the support comes from, really. Someone like a Rusius or Yandod or whoever who you're going to get helping out, like despite not being on the actual draft list.
hmm
Um, and like you said, that's kind of similar for Katut, where Katut is coming off like that big PUPL run, um, but does not have the same support at all, probably. And
yeah,
last Snake, they also had no support. Were pretty hyped up going into it, circuit winner and kept winning all these tours and all that, and barely limped into a 4-4. They got a 4-4, and that's with the infamous week one game versus Tasker with all the hurricane dodges. Um, and three of their
hmm
wins were in the first 4 weeks. They played like for weeks after that and were not finding a lot of wins. They did not have a good Snake. Um, so if we go back to that, I think they're even hotter this Snake coming off PUPL. Um, unlike TJ and Katat, or unlike TJ and Kepi, I look at this open run and this PPL run and the people they face. I'm like, this is a consistently much higher level of opponent. This is actually something I could feasibly see them playing in Snake. Like they played Ash into Solinor, into Lax, into Watashi, into Star, into Confide, into Bugsnader, into Ash again, into Star again. That is a much better slew of opponents to end up 8-1 off of. Um,
hmm I agree. I think Katat was extremely impressive in PUPL, and I feel like he would have learned a lot from the experience of last Snake, and that's why I'd put him in second of Ziri. Um, but there's not much in between it. There's maybe like I don't know. It's just momentum coming off. That's the only difference, I think.
yeah, I broke it down because I just rated like the past actual Snake performance with Ziri in support. Versus Katut is no support versus the recent PPL performance. But I think Katut being in second or first, absolutely reasonable draw. Literally just went 8-1 in PPL. Like that's some shit.
hmm Oh
Uh,
yeah, I said I'd rank Katat first, didn't I? Yeah, I'd still say probably Katat's first, just because SG would
ignoring
probably
Kepi,
need
obviously.
yeah, ignoring Kepi because Kepi would go 0.1. And then yeah, SG would probably just need more like not necessarily babysitting because SG doesn't operate like that. He just needs, I guess, more like I guess a desire. Like SG, if he has the right desire, he'll end up 7-2, like 8-1.
Hmm.
That's just 2 years.
As far as support goes, though, no one on Katut's team. Um,
Yeah, he doesn't need it though.
no, he does not really need it. I think. Well, like there are times when you go, he does not need it. Um, but on the other hand, like I said, his open one run was like, or his PUPL run was in a environment like the Clay Dolls, whereas last Snake was the time when he went into a team tour with no support, and got a bit bodied. He probably doesn't need it, but I don't know. It's something to mention. This ranking section though is also when we should talk about when people actually went in the draft, because Katut was a big shocker coming in round 3 as a PU main, which is just kind of weird. Like you don't really need to pick someone up for PU that early, unless you're that like you pick someone up that early if you're really scared that they're gonna get picked up by someone else, and that doesn't seem likely. And then you get to the next person, Ziri, who had the top record in Snake last year, a 7-3 performance, winning the entire tour. I'm sorry, 8-3 performance, winning the entire tour. And goes round 6, well after Katut and after TJ as well. As well as after Soulgazer, but that's more understandable. I just thought that's fucking weird. Like, totally outside of their placement. I just don't get round 6 Ziri after 3 other PU players.
Sorry?
No, just me.
I didn't. I cut out for a little bit. What did you say?
Just how Ziri went round 6 after 3 other PU players, despite winning Snake last year with an 8-3 record.
Oh yeah, he was our pick, not for PU, but he was just our pick in general. If the person who didn't get it before us got it, didn't just ignored him again. So we would have taken that opportunity should people have not. He wasn't in our draft line at all, but if people weren't gonna take him, we were about to take him and put him in, I don't know, UU or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
RU.
Yeah, and he out of all these PU players also offers the most in other tiers. I mean, unless you count Obi and Rosie Bear, I don't really know what they're doing. But from like a mainer perspective, again, like very few PU mains really do other tiers. False can do some OU support, but then for the most part, it's like, oh, the people who went undrafted, like I can support LC, Termi can support RU. It's limited a bit of NU, I guess. But Ziri kind of blows that out of the water with having like good slam results for a while and plays in all these circuits and has done well in like UU and NU and LC and whatever. That's just my griping about the draft order, because that was just what the fuck. That was just weird. But other than that, did not play SS in PUPL. So all we have is the 4-3 OK SM run, where they did fine, and there was not much to say about that. But had best record last year with Planet support. Now they're back with Spec support instead on their team. That's pretty scary. And Lily, if they need someone to tell them to run Scraggy.
I think Specs will be better support than what you guys are considering, because they have started getting back into it, like into Gen A.
Yeah, I rate.
I don't doubt that for 1 second. I
rate Specs. I was like, this is good support. I'm putting Ziri second. I'm not going to underrate that.
I probably did underrate that in comparison to my rankings. I just feel like when you have a core of people to operate, I feel like it can sometimes get lost in communication almost. Like how you gel as a duo sometimes plays into part a little bit. Whereas SG and Qatar, they can operate solo no problem. Ziri, although
but you still put Kepi at number 1.
Oh yeah, no. Kepi is easily number 1, but Kepi has me, and
you don't get lost in translation.
Oh no, I've never been lost in translation ever.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
So
that's Ziri though. I feel like I definitely have the least to say on them about anyone, because basically, oh yeah, they did the thing last year and they've got the support again. I don't know if you guys have like anything else. That's pretty much it.
He's probably a nice guy. I'd go to the bar with him. have a drink.
Not with his time zone, anyone. Jeez.
Oh yeah, you're right. Actually, maybe I would.
Maybe you would, since it's almost 6 a.m. for you now. Just
Yeah, sure.
yeah, it's
Why
like
Sun coming up yet?
Not yet. Almost.
You still have time.
well, it's closer to him. Sun rising in the east and all that. That gets to my number one pick. Other people's something else pick. Mr. Soulgazer, the person who has done the good in the past. 5-2 record last Snake, picking up the tier for the first time. This PUPL coming in, still playing just SM, not SS, but basically just recycling a bunch of teams and coming up with a 6-2 record. Is Soulgazer. I think he's good, and I think unlike pretty much everyone else, everyone from Ziri to Rosie Bear, not Rosie Bear, like I said, you can't like fall below expectations if you're expected to like be the worst placing person. So everyone from Ziri to Skip Can has some potential to just flop. That is part of what it means to be in like the newer PU player base, with just like the less experience and whatever. Katut, TJ, they've done it before. It's totally possible, and I wouldn't blame them. I know I've gone 0-5. I cannot imagine Soulgazer having a bad record. He's very consistent. He's been doing this for a very long time, and he knows what he's doing. The worst thing I can say about him is that he's going back to university, and maybe he'll just catch COVID and be out of the season. Like,
well, that's hard.
That's
jeez, man.
That's literally that's the only way I see a negative run happening. If they lose week 1, then they just don't play.
Incredible.
I'm not wishing it on anyone. I'm just saying. It's not a desire. It's okay.
This is like the timer is your win con type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Support on their team, not really, but there is Piff. And I guess Lockney Kicks and Metal Gross played in PUPL, but I don't think they did any of their own building or learning SS or anything. But Piff is not no one. I think their non-stall builds, even their stall builds, were not the most impressive this PUPL, but like they also clearly knew the tier and what they're doing, and that's someone to bounce stuff off of. And Soulgazer knows how to get support. Last year's Snake, 5-2 performance, he said was in large part due to getting LST to help him a lot.
You might just get LST again. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm going to steal LSD so he can't support Soulgazer now.
So that's our Snake analysis, I guess. Them's the teams. Go Asteroides, I guess, because we get the mainer managers. I think that just about covers it.
It's good.
Yeah, sounds about good.
All right. I was just waiting for that. Like, yep, you can move on. Okay. So that pretty much is everything that happened. Next week will there be tier shifts before we record? Tier shifts are on Tuesday, so maybe we'll wait till Tuesday to record, or like past Tuesday, so that we can get in with the tier shifts. So yeah, I think next week and we can probably hit on that, and then the week after that, Snake will have started, and we'll start going over that stuff. But for now, I think we can end it off with the classic, the refreshing, the truly the Dos Equis of our segments. Hajad's Gimmick Corner. Do people still know the meme of the Dos Equis ads? Is that just a reference that no one would get?
I remember slightly. I can't remember it now. I think that's the thing.
It doesn't matter. Akir, it is optional as the guest who like we didn't ask to do anything if you want to just drop something in. Um,
In the gimmick corner?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally
Man,
optional.
you're
We didn't ask you to get something fun, so
blindsiding me. Holy jeez.
I know. Pass. Yeah, let me.
Well, you gotta give me time.
Yeah,
I didn't know I was
I'll do
doing
something in the
this.
meantime, and then if you got nothing, you got nothing. Um,
I can do something as well.
I well
We can all share
obviously
some.
you got something. That's not it. That's just not even a question, Jed. Come on. Um, I think Solrock is actually cool right now. Um, our rockers tend to not really run recovery, or if it's Stunfisk, like just mono rest. And Solrock is in a weird place where it like does not really cover the same stuff. It doesn't cover like it's not got the electric immunity or whatever. It doesn't punish on pheasant the same way with static or what have you. Um, but it's surprisingly like not too shit versus the meta. Most of the stuff that can hit it really hard actually does not want to switch in between the threat of like Wisp or Stone Edge. Um, like you do not really want to go to your Kling Clangs or your Gorgeists or whatever with that Wisp threat, and it can sort of just stick around and be annoying. I don't think it's excellent. Obviously, like a lot of things in the meta hit Rock Psychic for super effective damage, but it's just surprisingly annoying at like sitting around and spreading burn and stuff. Like I think it generally works, and it's something that literally no one uses right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. Like slap in C plus or whatever, but yeah, it's not a complete nothing burger.
Cool.
Akir, find anything?
If a guest hasn't found something, I can.
Guests have said no before. Like we don't ask people. We just go if there's anything fun you want to plug, do it now.
The only really big thing that I've been tinkering with is Pikachu. Isn't crazy in Gen 8, but I've also been trying it in Gen 5, which
That sounds more fun.
it's working out really well, to be honest.
I think Onfuga was a big fan of Pikachu in Gen 5. Well, he passed away. Well, by passed away, I mean literally left his mobile.
Yeah.
I'll refer to his death from now on.
I
Okay.
don't think, because we didn't have the solid tier list until last year.
Mhm.
So, I don't know. I was just building Pika spikes one day and went, wait, why can't this work in Gen 5?
Yeah, I guess.
And
What
normally-
coverage do you fit in? Because you kind of want, I guess, like E-Speed HPI's volts and something.
that's it. I don't run Grass Knot because really big rounds are like Torterra, Stunfisk, and Ice is good enough for that.
Fair enough.
And of course, I want Volt Switch. I always have Volt Switch.
Mm. Yeah, what would the last filler be though? Because like when Nox not useful, Fake Out's not legal. Look here.
Actually, sorry, my screen froze for a little bit. I did try Yawn for a little bit, so I guess that can be my gimmick if you really want it.
Yawn Pikachu. Okay, that sounds much more like a Hajad set, but.
Well, I mean, like, Volt Switch is coming in, right? And what's Gen 5 is where I use the Yawn. So, like, if they stay in, they're dead. If if they leave, they take more spikes damage.
Mm. No, that doesn't sound completely unreasonable. It just sounds funny.
Gen 5 is funny.
Yeah, it's a funny meta.
And 3 is going to be funny. That starts next week.
The Jad.
Yo, what's up?
Is your turn?
Hey, bro.
What you got?
Oh, you're right, bro. So did you guys know that Doug Trio has 70 SPDF?
I did not know it's SPDF off the top of my head.
Well, now you know.
Let me search that just to confirm.
But now
it does have 70 SPDF.
The reason why you know it has 70 SPDF is because you're going to use an assault vest on it, and you're going to thank me later.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
or you could just run Lifeorb and Sludge Wave and then bob all the grasses, which is probably more appropriate. But Assault Vest is good as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because everyone's running Shiinotic in this meta. I'm kidding. Random Sludge Wave is really not that bad. Between Tangela, Appleton, and Shiinotic, it's like arguably like I've seen some like Life Orb Gorgeists fit Fire Blast. Like maybe Sludge Wave. Itemless Maractus.
That's a stretch.
Oh no, the Fire Blast.
That's a stretch on Gorgeist. That's a stretch on Gorgeist, 100%. But on Doug Trio, it's probably your best third coverage move.
Well, yeah, but it's not like Fire Blast is hitting that much different stuff for Gorgeist. Like Gorgeist only runs it. Gorgeist only runs Fire Blast to hit like specifically the things you cannot Poltergeist. Like it hits Tangela and Mawile. That's about it. Sludge Wave's like kind of better actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, why isn't Sludge Wave just better though? Like what?
This is what happens.
What do you really
at 6 a.m., bro?
What do you really miss? Really like good. What do you not good, but like compared to Fire Blast, what are you really missing? Like you're a bit weaker versus Leafeon, Maractus, whatever itemless grasses. It doesn't hit Roselia, but Fire Blast isn't what you're hitting Roselia with anyway. Other Gorgeists? Sure. I guess other Gorgeists. Yeah, okay. Itemless Gorgeist. That's the thing it misses out on. I couldn't think of what the Mon was because I was like, it's you. It was me all along.
This is what happens, bro. You talk to me and you just become derpy the entire time.
Oh no, I'm on like 2 hours of sleep. A little less.
Oh,
so
I see. Maybe the lack of sleep is contagious.
Yeah, it's been a very fun day. Anything else we missed out on before we just closed this thing out? I think it was supposed to be shorter, and then it ended up being like an hour, so that's cool. Akir?
Cappy number one.
Thanks for showing up, Mr. PUTL and PUPL hosts and all that, giving us time out of your very busy schedule.
We love Akir. We love Akir. We also love Cappy. Put them at number one.
Yeah, I think so. Solgaze are number one. I agree. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Like I said, next week we'll probably delay it until after the tier shifts.
That's a weird way of saying Cappy.
Stay something. I don't know. I was gonna say stay frosty because that's like the ironic like haha stay frosty, but I'm just not even really feeling it.